Hi, my name is Chatuyna. Welcome to the Atlanta Film Festival Creative Conference. I'm excited and looking forward to having this conversation with these dynamic women whom I admire for their talent and their ability to continue creating in this industry that's not often easy to navigate for Black women. We're joined today by Monét, a writer, director, and friend that I've known for a while. Jamila Jordan, a producer and dear friend, and then Idil, whose work I've been watching from afar and have really admired her. So thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's start off by introducing you lovely ladies. If you would just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background. We'll go in alphabetic order to make it easy. So we'll start with you, B.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be a part of this amazing panel with these great ladies. And yeah, I'm from Maryland originally. I'm based in New York, but work a lot out of LA, mostly direct commercials and branded content and shorts. And I just did a feature film that's now on Xfinity's Black Experience, and you can check it out on Xumo, which is spelled Xumo, and also X1.
Beautiful.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, I'm Jamila Jordan-Theus, originally from New Jersey. I live in LA now. I am the head of motion picture for Genius Entertainment, which is Marseille Martin's production company. I know we're going to get into the background later, but I've held a few titles that I'm really excited and proud of. And yeah, happy to be here and have this really, I think, important conversation and to connect with you guys.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Idil Ibrahim. I'm a director, writer, producer. Used to be based in New York for many years, working internationally and also here in North America. And now I'm in Los Angeles. And I kind of span both fiction and nonfiction. So, and also both film and television. So I kind of wear a few different hats and float around genre. And
Awesome. Thank you so much for your introductions. So let's start from the beginning. What are your origin stories that led you to work in film and TV? Thea, we'll start with you.
I said not all at once. Yeah, it's funny. I went to film school and then worked at Beyonce's production company for a little bit, and then jumped around and went to teach documentary filmmaking at a public high school, and then just kind of bopped around and tried to figure out a lot of things. I feel like I had a lot of jobs until I finally broke into commercials, which I feel like is also a really great way for directors to, kind of hone in your skills. But I think sometimes it can be a little limiting if you're still a creative person, but it is very great for for money and paying bills. I'll say that. So yeah.
Nice.
How did so I kind of have a little bit of a different trajectory. So me and my two siblings, we were industry kids. So our mom basically got us in the business to pay for our college education. That's how this whole thing started. And so at a super early age, we were on TV and movie sets and commercials, print work as well. And I quickly learned that I did not want to be in front of the camera at all. It was very clear it was not my thing. But I did learn about directing and producing and all of the other people that are absolutely vital and necessary to making our shows and content come alive. And so from there, my first job right out the gate was at The View. So I started in live television in New York. And from there, just kind of started freelancing and bouncing around and just really wanted to, I still enjoy it, but I enjoyed the idea of having a different job every couple of months. And so the plan was to not have a plan. The plan was just to kind of experience and see where it was going to take me before I had to settle down and like kind of make a definitive decision. So that was just kind of like the first foray into the industry and the business.
I think for me, and it's great to hear their journeys because I love hearing how people got where they are. But for me, I was determined to make films or TV at a young age. Like I was, it's kind of a joke in our household. I'm just always watching something. So my husband is always like, still watching TV and film. And so at a young age, I was like, oh, I want to do this. How do I do this? Went to college. I went to UC Berkeley for undergrad. And I was really blessed to have this professor, a filmmaker herself, Chinese American professor named Lonnie Ding. And in her class, we kind of learned filmmaking, like every component, every aspect of it. And she really empowered us as students. And so the bug like got me, and I was like, okay, how do I do this? And then from there, it just kind of started this journey of like, did the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences internship, was like on a TV set for a summer. TV show set for a summer. And, also blessed with a wonderful mentor, Laurietta Taub, who had me like in every department. So just kind of realized like there's various components, as Jamila said, to like making and executing these things, but then just also learning that I just love the spirit of collaboration and community and creating at that time. And from there, it just was this journey of travel, self-exploration, like V said, still learning, lots of jobs, the hustle, and just finding a way forward, both in film and then ultimately finding my way back to TV more recently, like post-COVID. So it's been a journey. I'm still learning. And then now more increasingly, I'm like determined to do directing. So that's like my jam. And having worn various hats and understanding and respecting various positions, just as a Black woman director, feeling empowered to really start this next chapter and forge forward.
Well, we'll be rooting for you on that.
Thank you.
As Black women navigating the industry, we face a number of obstacles, both visible and invisible. Despite it all, we're still committed to the craft of storytelling. What are some of your North Stars that encourage you to keep marching forward? We'll start with you, Jamila.
I was gonna say, I'm like, I'll take this one. No, I love like just hearing you talk about like how, it's kind of like the going joke that you're watching TV all the time, right? Because that was me coming up. Like not saying I didn't go outside, definitely went outside and I played and all of those things, but I absolutely was back at the couch at 8:00 on Thursday. Like I had my shows that I was committed to watching and finishing and doing. And I think knowing that I love storytelling and I love the stories, and that is a part of how I came to be today. Like it's just the entire experience of that, and experience of the different types of narratives that are out there. And I think there was never, I think, a question of if this was the industry I was going to be in. I think it was just a little bit more of like finding the place and figuring out how I was going to accomplish and do what I wanted to do. And so I think like the North Star, or like the guiding light of continuing and being in this business. I love this business. The ups and the downs, and all of the wacky years of and seasons that come. I wake up and I choose it every single morning, and it's because I love it. And I think what keeps me going is it is the stories that maybe I want to see more of, or the stories that just, are inside, or we're talking and how come we don't have this, or we don't see this. It's like knowing that there is just, I think, so much space and so much room for creativity and visual creativity. I think that's what consistently keeps me going and keeps me moving forward. It's figuring it out. It feels like a big puzzle sometimes, right? And it's like you just have to get the pieces to fit. And I feel like that's also just producing a period, but
Yeah.
it's constant. You're massaging, you're constantly working, and you are trying to figure out, how to get to the end. And the end is, production. The end is, the finished product, no matter what that looks like. And so, I think just knowing that it's a natural, like I'm putting one foot in front of the other. Yeah, I don't know. And also too, it's like we don't have to put like an exact number on how long I've been, but it's also a bit of like, I've invested this much here. We are going to see this through all the way. And so that's the real motivator right there. I'm leaving here with something. No.
I hear that. Hey,
No, I hear you.
Listen, I felt that. I was like, yes, baby. I'm here.
I know.
And for you, B?
The question is about motivation, right? Just like what's
your North Star, like what keeps you marching forward, despite the invisible obstacles that we face as Black women, and stay committed to the craft of storytelling.
I mean, I think for me, like I just wrapped a short and it's been some time since I've done a narrative short. And it was just look, I put my crew through a lot of wardrobe changes, a lot of makeup changes. We had visual effects. We had a company move. We're dealing with a studio. It was a lot. But baby, I felt the community. And I feel like I haven't felt that in a really long time. And to have like a 20-year-old who is like still figuring it out and like come up to me and ask like, I really want to get into this acting thing. And, how do I break into the business? And to give, her advice, I feel like I always wanted a me, if that makes sense. Like I was always looking for someone to like just mentor me, just give me pearls of wisdom. So I think I was always like kind of having these parasocial relationships with like celebrities or people who would just like drop these gems online. But the fact that I was able to like be that for her in that moment and like keeping the door open, that's definitely my North Star, I would say. And also just the fact that Black folks are not monolithic, and we need to see ourselves in sci-fi worlds and alternate universes and genre bending things, not just like comedy or drama, like, or documentaries, like, please more. So it's just like, I think those things, I guess keep me grounded and keep going. And I feel like I have my combat boots on. And sometimes I'm like, can I retire these things? But maybe not. Y'all know.
Yeah. I mean, how to go after, I agree. It's like an echo chamber in a way. And yeah, I mean, the combat boots, it's like, the nice thing is in terms of camaraderie, or when everything is right, like on a set or on a project, like, and just the vibes both in front and behind, it's like the love, like that love, it's like you can't recreate that. And so I think that when there is an environment that's slightly more toxic or stressful, or maybe not the right vibe, so to speak, I think the North Star is just like to go back to that place of love and to think about like Jamila said, executing, like, problem solving. And I think this is where, interpersonal dynamics and communication come into play, and all the work and the history and the time invested in this. And so I think the North Star is being true to myself and understanding my love of both film and television and how I want to show up and work. What my priorities are in like the face of whether it's an amazing dynamic or like less ideal situation. And then, trying to get back to that if I feel, and if that's off in any way, and also if it's a prolonged thing, like sometimes you're on these things, these are like, you're at war sometimes, as you said, at the combat boots, or these are like long-term relationships, like marriage, learning from each experience and then trying to dial in every time, like how to create more of the healthy, beautiful environments and like less so of like the more toxic. And so as a Black woman, we never know in these situations when we're hired on sometimes, what the environment will be, or if it's like a tokenized position, or if like, are they really trying to hear what I'm, have to say? And I think, maybe younger me would have just been like so happy just to be there, and trying to make it work. you know, and finding ways to assert myself, but then like learning all those dynamics. Whereas me now is like, why did you hire me if you didn't want to hear what I have to say? And finding ways, you know, to really, again, be true to myself, you know, professionally, right? But also clear about boundaries and how to like work together. Because when it's beautiful and right, it's amazing and it's like the best thing ever. And so I just try to just keep searching for that and creating that. And I think as we strive and develop and grow in our careers, it's you're learning to find your people.
As you're learning and finding your people, like you as creators, what kind of stories are you all drawn to telling? We can start with you, Idil, since you.
Oh, me. I love really complex, nuanced human stories, you know. I always joke that there's comedy in me, but I do tend to gravitate more towards drama. And also in terms of nonfiction, just real immersive stories. So as a producer, I've helped produce, you know, films, nonfiction. I think I'm stepping more into directing both nonfiction and fiction, like I said. But I tend to gravitate to those just like immersive, nuanced human stories that everyone can relate to, and really rich characters.
I'm all over the place. I am completely all over the place. I think there was a point in time where I think what I watched and what I was making weren't aligned. But I do think that now I've kind of like found my way. And I don't know, maybe it is just the art of storytelling. I don't exactly know how we've come to where we are now. I'm thankful for it, but it seems like everything is kind of merged. But I will always love the big commercial 4-quad, you know, popcorn movies, always for sure. But at the same time, I also really love character-driven projects. I think now that I've kind of like crossed into a new phase, like I am a mom, like I've started watching more dramas. I've started like dialing in a little bit more to like the feelings and the emotional heartstrings of things, where I think previously I was a little bit more dialed into the comedies. I am also just like a diehard sci-fi fan. I love sci-fi, adventure. And that could be grounded or in a whole nother world and universe. The spectrum there. I always get excited when those things become popular because I'm like, this is great. We're about to get like a whole lot more stories in. And even IP that ends up, you know, being rebooted or reimagined. I'm here for all of that. And so I think those are just stories that I'm naturally just going to gravitate to and always kind of give a watch to. I think that's the area.
I feel you. I also am like all over the place, like transparently. Like I loved like this film that just came out. Well, I guess like last year, like Mami Wata. I loved that film. But then I love things like Parasite or like Everything Everywhere All at Once or like Encanto or like I don't know. I am so all over the place. I think it's or Avatar. Like I don't know. I'm like so I think similar to Idil's point, I love grounded storytelling. Like no matter what the universe is or the world building, like we still feel for these characters. We still emote with them. We still cry. There's a bumpiness and there's a roller coaster. And I'm like, yes, I love that. So I also love like fusing narrative, I feel like elements into doc work. So it doesn't feel just like a regular boring documentary, but like how to like infuse and make this documentary a bit more like a narrative or hybrid filmmaking. So yeah, I am totally a little bit everywhere, transparently. I love genre bending things, I'll say, where it's not just a comedy. Maybe it's like a comedy meets like a little sci-fi, meets a little thriller. Love a thriller. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a genre girl. So,
But it's also interesting too how like genre, like people say genre, and it can mean it's like the depth of what genre now. It's so deep and it's so vast, and it's like I almost feel like it needs a whole different, like it needs another name and another category because there's so much that is in there. And I love all of it, by the way. I'm here for absolutely all of it. But I think that's also interesting, like where we are right now and how the lines have really been crossed, right? And creatively too, and how those stories are being told and how everything kind of comes like the vision of the director. And I know you were talking about documentaries just now. It's like, and I know we can kind of all get into it, but even just like the docs that are made all from like archive material, like that to me is, it's like the things that people can now do to kind of just stretch the limits. It's like there's no one way of doing anything these days. And I think that's like, it's really inspiring, right? It's like no matter what seat you're in, when you see something that challenges what you thought of that world, like that is like that's why that's why I'm here. That is why I'm here, right? It's like you are being challenged by other creatives, and I think it's so beautiful to kind of watch and see.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. B and Idil, as directors, you've worked across different mediums, film, TV, commercials. How do you differentiate working in these different spaces? And then also, like, what are some key similarities and differences between working in these mediums that you work in?
Idil, you want to go first or you want me? Yes. Yes.
Well, technically, I actually haven't directed in TV. I
Yet.
produced and I wrote.
Yeah,
Yet.
manifesting that for you.
So B, I'm gonna let you take it. And I haven't done commercial. We can get into that, but maybe offline.
Oh, I'm trying to get more
You
Black women, more Black
Hey,
people.
let me know.
Let's
I got a
go.
baby to put to call, like put
Okay.
to like Jamila said.
You're a mommy now, so yes. No,
I'll let B start with this one.
I mean, TV, I can't help you there, but commercials, I got you. I feel like it also is still really hard because a lot of heads of productions are still not willing to, I think, see a filmmaker who's done a short or who's done a feature sometimes. They still need to see that you can tell a story within like a 30 to 60-second format. And they need to see that it's done well. They need to see that maybe it's stylish, that there's a celebrity or all the things. So they want you to do all these impossible things and then they'll give you the chance. But I find it just counterproductive because it's like, how is someone supposed to get the opportunity if you don't give them the chance? And I find that a lot, like just with our industry, like the rules are just different for us as Black folks and I don't know, as women, but I try not to like let that eat away or get into my psyche. But going back to your question, I think how you prepare for one is maybe how you prepare for all of them. I think commercials are a little bit different in the sense of you still are reporting to a client and an agency. So you might have this beautiful idea of doing like this 360, like dolly shot, lots of movement, crane, booming, all the things. And then they might be like, we're going to nix that day of. And you just kind of have to eat that because unfortunately it is their vision and they are, paying for all of it. Whereas with narrative, I feel like you can really put your blood, sweat, tears, all the things and music videos. I think TV is a little bit different because you still have to like do the politicking. So, I mean, I haven't directed television yet, so a little difficult, but I think, yeah, you still have to do prep, still meeting with department heads, talk to as many people as possible, just getting in the cellular. So you're like trying to create the same brainchild as possible. So I would say that.
How'd you land your first commercial?
Oh yeah. So it was, I guess, more branded content, but a few years ago, I did a spot with, it's kind of hazy now. because I did them like back to back. I did one with Rhapsody, Janet Jackson, Yemi Alade, Rosario Dawson, and somebody else right now. It'll come back to me. But anyways, I kept on doing these like really short spots, like branded content for OK Africa. And so I would do one, and then they were just like, oh, do you want to do the next one? And the next one. So I had basically like 5 things to show. So I think that's the thing. If you want to break into commercials, you have to have a portfolio and something to show. And I don't think it makes sense to waste time making a spec commercial like for Nike or Adidas. I think it's best to like go to a brand that might be a newer beauty brand or a newer brand and say, hey, I see you don't have any videos, create a treatment and see if they would be willing for you to basically be maybe like their in-house director. So then basically it looks like you got hired from them to do commercials. And if you do a few of them, now you have things to show. And nobody goes back and checks, you know, they just want to see that you have the goods. It's just like school, honestly, like even going to film school, I don't know. It was such a hefty price. And sometimes I'm like, I don't know if it was fully worth it. I can't go back and change it, but
Idil, do you have anything to add to the previous question?
Yeah, I think working in the various forms. I mean, I've produced commercials. I've worked in television, like I said, and have worked in film. I think preparation is key for all of them, you know, creatively, professionally, personally. I think for commercials, I remember, you know, a lot of personalities and a lot of money being thrown at problems, and it was an experience. And then for film, you know, indie film, for, like, you know, you just find creative solutions to get what you want done. And then for TV, I feel like, you know, there's a language that's set for at least the shows. So you're kind of like in this world and in this universe that has its language, and there's various, like, I think the showrunners are kings and queens in TV. And so like the directors and the creative team is really working with them, and the writers, depending on like how big that group is, like to really execute, right? And I think for me, working in TV, I worked on an anthology. So I worked on an episode of Little America, and it was slightly different, you know, than say my internship, where we were on a whole, you know, like the whole summer season was like just doing back-to-back episodes. Whereas Little America, there's different episodes, right? Each one is almost like a standalone film. But Lee Eisenberg, the showrunner, and Sean, co-showrunner, they have like the clear vision for the series. So we would just like, you know, work closely with them, and it was a really exciting experience. So I think that it just varies, but I think preparation is key.
Jamila, similarly to what I asked them, you know, you've worked as a producer in unscripted and now in TV. What are some key similarities and differences that you've seen in these mediums and how they operate?
Yeah, I think there's crossover, whether it's non-scripted, whether it's scripted narrative, TV, and features. I think the main difference is probably like the hierarchy and the process of how it's executed and how it's done. But and depending on where you come in at, right? So like if you are one of the executives on the development side and you're crafting the idea and you've gone through the pitch process, you've gone through the process of taking it out and selling it or trying to acquire money to make it, very similar. And you've done the development materials and you've been on that executive level. I think preparation, like, you really can't underestimate that, right? Because especially if you are trying to ask other people for money, you kind of have to explain what you are going to be doing with that money, right? And they want to know that they are investing in not just an idea, but you as a person and you as a producer. And so I think, you know, whether it's having a solid pitch materials, whether the script is basically flawless, and if not, what you would do to make it flawless. I think knowing a rough idea of budget, I think knowing who your department heads are and who you would want to work with in order to make that idea come to fruition, and making sure like everyone's making the same movie. You know, it's the classic, I'm thinking of a cat. Everyone is thinking about a different color cat, right? So it's like the most you can do to kind of get everybody, I think, to buy in to what you are doing is what you're going to want to do. And honestly, that's all preparation and anticipating what someone is going to be able to ask you for, what they're going to ask you. And I think being able to really have a solid plan together for that. TV, yes, the showrunners, like they for the most part, they're absolutely steering the ship with the studio or network or wherever it's going to be distributed. Film, whether it's already in the hands of a studio or if it's independent, ideally you're working underneath your director, but as producers, you are heavily weighing in on those processes, especially when it comes down to, you know, your shoot days. Maybe not so much in the edit, like eventually, like, you know, you will weigh in on that front too, but and then with documentaries, you're the support system. You're supporting, you know, you are a creative, even though you are also working under that director too, but you are helping to facilitate and make those things happen. And so when I hate talking about money, but like if there ever was a budget constraint or you're supposed to be shooting off filming out in the world and something goes wrong, it's the problem solving and it's being able to present, okay, yes, we were supposed to be at a fire station. We now have to move this to, you can pick this tattoo parlor, this grocery shop, this gas station. They could all give you the look that you want, but which one do you want to go with? So I think being able to like think on your feet and support and know what the main mission is, like that's what you're doing as a producer. But again, it has to be that preparation. And I think knowing what you're doing that day. I don't know. It's like it's a knowing what you're doing. And I think a lot of this does come from experience, and I'm sure everybody on this Zoom can speak to that. But I think if you got caught unprepared one time, that is the last time you are ever going to want to feel that way. So you know the next time going in, you're going to shift and adjust. And so I think trying to be as prepared as possible is what you're going to want to do. But you know, or being able to pivot quickly and efficiently is definitely what you're going to want to lean into as well.
Nice. What are some, like, what's the most challenging experience that you've all encountered, and how did you rise above it?
We don't have enough time.
And we don't have to go into specifics, but you know, just pick one. That could be like a teachable moment for those who are tuning in.
Yeah, I think I'll take this one. So like early on, I used to freelance produce. I'm on a show where they're building with cupcakes over here. I'm on another show where they're, you know, it's a tattoo competition show. I'm on another one where like I've worked a number of different shows. Again, I love each of them. I've learned something from every single show that I've been on. And I really think working in non-scripted, when I came up in non-scripted, you really had to like, I will never forget, when we were in the fields and we were shooting and there was a plane going by and somebody was like, we can't stop the plane. And I said, what? Did you really just ask you to stop the plane? It was like, it was, I know they were joking, but at the same time, they were a little bit like, somebody divert the plane. Like, it's not going to happen. Right. So I think, you know, thinking back on that, should we maybe have picked a location that wasn't so close to an airport? Possibly, right? So I think it's there isn't one situation, but I do think for me, I really did pick up something on every single job that I've ever had. And it really is a bit of, you know, when I present, I think options or talking through, or we're in the creative brainstorming space. And if ever we're looking at locations, I am the person, there's an airport 20 minutes away. Like it's a natural thing. Now I will never, as long as we are all clear, this is a possibility, right? And it may or may not weigh in, but at least I'm gonna say it out loud and we're all gonna think about it for a hot second. And so I think it's one of those, we've all had rough days. I've definitely, I've had rough days, but I'm definitely one of those people, like, I do not ever want to feel unprepared or caught out there more than one time. And so I just kind of always take it and flip it and run with it. And so I know yes, no one is stopping an airplane, but the sound, it's just one of those things that we just all end up thinking about, just kind of moving forward and how we're applying that, I think, moving forward. I don't know if I answered your question, but
you did. Idil, you want to take it?
Sure. I think to Jamila's point, there's like the realities of filming, in the field, which a lot of us like do, and these elements that you can't control. And I think, like, most recently I was on a shoot. I think a challenge was just timing, in the sense that we didn't have much time to prepare. And so sometimes, you're creating a miracle every time you show up and actually execute and then deliver. And so, we had an electricity outage, for example. You can't prepare for being on location and having the elect go out. And so, that's just an example of, like she said, pivoting and needing to know, like, okay, you know what? We can use natural light. Luckily, it was beautiful, soft light. We had, it was magic hour. It was gorgeous. I didn't even really want lights, 100%, like for some of the interiors. I wanted to keep a naturalistic look. So it worked out fine. And, while the camera department was freaking out, I was like, we are good. Like, we're fine. Don't need to set it up. But that's an example of a challenge. So, and I work a lot, like, in developing countries. And so sometimes, you just go with it, but then that's where the magic happens. Like, you have a plan, you come prepared, as we said. And then sometimes the universe will just give you a curveball, whether that's an airport or a helicopter, or, somebody needs to clear the location or doesn't want you filming there. There's a component of being prepared as a Black woman in these environments. We don't get second or third chances often. We have to come correct every time. And so when we are thrown curveballs, we make magic happen, or we try to, and make it work. And so whether that's electricity, or if somebody doesn't want me filming or whatever, like, we will find, I always say, we will find, we will make it work. We'll make something work, and we get what we get. And sometimes it's a beautiful, happy accident, I call it. And it, like, just works out beautifully. And sometimes it's like, okay, didn't love that, but then how do we fix and improve upon that, like on our next shoot day? Luckily, none of these have really happened on our last shoot day, but there's all kinds of curveballs. I was just shooting, and we are there during rainy season, which, to her point regarding an airport, I was like, we're going on this shoot during rainy season, right? Like, we have a limited time, and the rains are very much a character. And luckily we were spared. It would rain at night. But there was a moment on that last day of shoot where around 4:00 p.m., like, the winds picked up, and it was like and so we had to like stop early, wrap basically, and start working our way out to get to the main road, like, as a team company unit. So, it's okay. We got what we got. In fact, I had to tell my DP, like, who wanted to keep shooting, like, we're good. Like, we have what we want, because that tied back to everything else. But you just have to be flexible, because there will always be a challenge. The question is, what challenge? And it's almost like a game. What's going to come up today? But I think once you learn how to anticipate that, then you're like, okay, something is going to occur. It's not always big things, but like something's going to happen. I wonder what it is. And so I kind of approach my shoot days with that, or projects even, like with that in mind, like what's the curveball that I'm not anticipating, you know? And I try to practice presence, but at the same time, just have just like this, even the slightest sense of anticipation so that I can remain flexible, because you never want to be too married to something.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. B?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it short with this one, but I think it's still a hard pill to swallow. A friend or an ex-friend, I'll say. I don't know, I think I would love to hear, I guess, everyone's opinion on this, maybe now or maybe offline. But to make a long story short, we went to the same alma mater. We both went to Spelman, and in true HBCU form, I thought, okay, I know you don't care for the job that you're at. I think you would be great for this project. And so I brought her onto this project, but I think I ended up seeing, not right away, but I thought that there was like some weird energy. And I think I'm trying to figure out, like, even though I'm someone who wants to very much like work with us and find, new ways to like bring folks of color into things, I don't know, because it ended up being a detriment to the project. She ended up going 6 figures over budget. And so as a result of this, I don't even want to call it mishap, but this oversight, we weren't able to travel to different cities and things. And so we were supposed to go to like Louisiana and this place and this place. So all of that was like now cut. And so I think it was hard because I'm not the producer on it. Like I was, I'm directing this, co-architecting the world in that way, but not necessarily running numbers. And so I don't know. I think one thing that I guess it has shown me is like, just do a better job of vetting people, even if they are so-called friends. Maybe getting references and asking other people like, hey, what is this person's work ethic? Like, I know that we're friends, but what was it like working with this person? Because they're telling me this, and I know that I've seen the end results of these said projects, but so I think it's a hard one still for me to like swallow, because it's like, wow, I really tried to like help this person out, and like I thought that we were on the same accord, but obviously we weren't. So I don't know. I think I'm still like navigating sometimes the weirdness of like wanting to create opportunities, especially for folks of color, especially as department heads, but also like navigating weirdness and power dynamics or age differences or just weird like things. So I hope that made a little bit of sense.
No, it does. It does. And it's always awkward and weird when it's a friend involved, and then now it spills into other things unnecessarily. And unfortunately, I think we all have an experience to share in that. But I do hope that, we can find ways to maybe come back into in the future when we've all matured and have learned better. My next question for you all is, for those starting out, like, how does one find a mentor? If I'm like looking for a mentor, what advice do you have on how to find a mentor? And how important is it to have a mentor?
I think it's super important to have a mentor. I say that, but also acknowledging that it might not come right away, right? It might not come when you're just starting out in this business. And so I think having somebody whose career trajectory you like, or you want to walk in their footsteps, in their path, and do what they did, because maybe it's similar to what you're trying to do. I think to me, that might be mentorship, right? Or that might be the level of access you have at the moment and at the time. I do think it's really, whether they're panels like this or whether they're in person or whether you go to a screening and there, I mean, it's all depends on what industry you're in, but if there's a screening and, you know, the filmmaker and the creatives are there afterwards, I think being in the environment where you can hear firsthand how these stories came to be, you can hear the testimonies, you hear, you know, from these execs and creatives, like what they did to get to where they are now. All of that I think has a hand in it. Because, like, let's also face it. And by the way, no one checked my degree after I graduated too. Like, going back to what you had mentioned before, like, no, like, but, you know, not everyone has the opportunity to go to school. Not everyone has the opportunity to go to classes. Not everyone, you know, but you might be able to go to a film festival. You might be able to, you know, again, have that person that you admire their work, and you love their work, and you listen to every podcast interview they've done, you watch everything that they're doing. So I think if you aren't able to actually like connect with somebody, I think that person can still mentor you, right? You just have to do a little bit more footwork and a little bit more, I think, research into who they are. And honestly, I think having perseverance and having that grit and figuring it out, like, if you can do that groundwork, you know, I really do think like that's the behavior that you're going to want to have to succeed in this business. You know, it's like overcoming the obstacle. And so again, if it's not in person, I really think it's trying to find a way to be in those rooms so that you were just hearing, I think, people talk and people, you know, really kind of like sharing what they did, because that's how we're all learning from each other right now.
Yeah, and I would add that there's a lot of translatable skill sets. And so sometimes they might not even be in the industry, for example, film and television that you're aspiring to. Maybe you're in a, you know, workplace environment that's in a different sector, but you have a wonderful boss who's like, you know, if you want to be a producer, for example, really, you know, honing in on your executive skills and your project management capabilities and your, you know, just like whether accounting, for example, if you want to be a line producer, like there's just cross translatable skill sets. And I think that mentors can come in various ways and, you know, and different paths. And I think for me personally, like one of my first mentors was my professor, you know, and it wasn't very clear that she was a mentor, but she was basically saying, you guys in her class, like to us, you can all be filmmakers. And I'm going to show you how. And like literally from that class or the years ahead and behind, like many of us have, you know, circuitously again, found our way into film and TV. So I don't think it's a coincidence. We all shared the same professor. And so I think be open to the ways and like in the spaces that these people present themselves to you. And it might be just for a season. It might not be like throughout your career or life, but you know, you just have to kind of get those kernels of knowledge and like, you know, keep them close.
And it might be multiple people too. Like, I don't know. It's just like you have the friend you party with, the friend you shop with, the friend you know, is chill on the couch with. That could be exactly like, I look at mentorship in the same way. I'm like, I love what they did financially. I love what they did, you know, and the jobs that they've picked in content wise. I love how they, like, you also I think you can also just like pull from multiple places what you are looking for and what you need. Like you said, at that season and at that period of time.
Yeah, just I guess piggybacking on both of your points, I would say like no matter where you are, whether you're at a production company or you're at someplace like a Sundance or Tribeca or wherever, I think there's always like an ally. Like it's like even like if you're the main character of the movie, there's still some supporting role character people that you can find along the way who might give you like words of encouragement. And I think also like following your interests. So like when I worked at Parkwood, Beyonce's production company, it was, I mean, I wasn't doing like what I wanted to do right there. But I would say that I learned a lot from my supervisor in terms of like going to B&H and getting hard drives and making a lot of errands. And when I did get an opportunity, showing up. And so it's like, when you do get those opportunities, how are you showing up and what can you learn from them? I think those are like crucial. And so it's like, even though we don't work there, both like him and I right now, we still have that relationship. So I think it's like, what are you doing when you're under pressure? I feel like people, want to be on the red carpet and want to have like the glitz and glamour that comes along with this career, but I don't always find that people want the grit of like putting in the hours, you know what I mean? It's like, I think it's a lot of things for me. It's watching lots of clips from different directors and whatever the position is, from BAFTA or Film Courage or masterclass. Like, these are great at like resources, or director's notes. There's so many things, script notes, like there's so many libraries. I mean, I feel like we're living in this like beautiful Rolodex. So it's like, you don't necessarily always, like, mentorship could be always a physical person, but sometimes it could be like taking a gym here or there also. And like, I think someone was saying in terms of like the seasons, like, I remember being on a feature film and having to make runs to the accounting and like learning a little bit about accounting and petty cash and how to put receipts like on a white sheet. So it's like almost all these skills that seem like loose and random. Like, I think that they also like end up making you a better filmmaker. I think Hitchcock talks about how he was an art director for a long time. And then if you look at his films, they're heavily art directed. And I think it's also because he knows what it was like being an art director, a production designer, making all those runs. I've also done that, where art department, you have to give them like their total props because they do so much. So yeah, I think it's do where your interests lie, like go where your interests lie, because I think then people can also like give you beautiful gems. It's like, if you're not into art, you probably shouldn't like be an art PA. If you're really into camera, like be a camera PA and then work yourself up. So I think you have to like follow your interests and then be willing to learn and try not to take things personally, which is always hard because, if you're a sensitive soul, it's hard. So.
Yeah, it's not always easy. Just to add up to what you all said, mentors can also be found in books. A book that I highly recommend is called Tribe of Mentors by, I believe his name is Timothy Ferris. You can find it on Amazon. I highly recommend that book. For my next question for you all, as creators, do you have representation? If so, how does one navigate getting representation and getting their first rep? B, you're nodding. We'll go with you first.
Oh, this question. I am managerless, agentless. All I have is a lawyer. I definitely want management, but I don't know. It's been really hard navigating that for me. Even though I went to NYU, sometimes film schools don't always teach you about how to navigate, how to get management. So I think a lot of things I've just been transparently just learning as they've come. And so when I got my first manager, I think things were great. And I was taking meetings, getting a lot of notes on my script and how to hone in. And that script is like my little baby, my little engine that could. But then just realized that this wasn't the right person. And she kind of ghosted me after a while. And so I was like, okay, this isn't working. And then had to pivot to another manager who seemed amazing and great. And yeah, was getting all the things too, like notes, all these great, meetings with dream companies, doing pitches during the pandemic. And then, yeah, once I got, you know, my bigger feature and stuff, I just noticed like a gap, a lag in time. And so we didn't speak for like 9 months. And yeah, it was like, wow, I literally haven't spoken to you in 9 months. And now you want to hit me with a payment because you negotiated for my rate to be higher. So I think for me and this person are no longer together. But I think it just it's taught me a lot about maybe asking more questions and like asking other folks who are represented at that company, what is your experience like, you know, with this manager, with this agent? Are they really putting you out for things, or is it just optics? Or do they like need another Black person or woman or whatever? Because I'm not really interested in that. I'm interested in working and really like honing my skills and getting better as a storyteller. So yeah, I'm looking, but also I'm looking for the right person. And sometimes I'm just like, where is that? Like, I know that, you know, the industry is like, they'll wait to come to you. So I'm like, I guess I just have to keep waiting, but it is annoying because I feel like a lot of white dudes just like get things, they can, you know, do one short and then they get this amazing company representing them. And it's like Black folks, Black women, queer folks, trans folks, all the things just have to do some things just to get a little piece of the pie. So I don't know. Like I'm optimistic, but also a little cautious because of my previous experiences.
We're manifesting a good manager for you. They're coming. They're on the way. Putting it in the air.
I received.
Jamila, I think you're muted if you're speaking.
Of course I'm muted. We've been on Zoom for 10
Classic.
years, and I still talk and I'm on
Classic.
mute. God.
Classic.
We're gonna talk offline because that should not be the experience, even though I know that that is a lot of people's experience. But I personally don't have representation, but I work at a talent-led production company. So we do have an agency, we do have a manager. I also just my circle and just my trajectory and how I came to be, I do have access to quite a few different managers, and I work with all of the agencies just because I do think that you kind of have to, just the way that the jobs are going, the types of clients that they have signed, whether you know, end up working with them, whether, you know, it's a writer, talent, director, other production-based companies, when we were talking about financing and financial production companies too, different types of arms. So no, not personally. However, I do think building your connections in that space, I do find to be helpful. However, you may not need it depending on where you are in your trajectory and where you are in your career. And so I think that, you know, knowing that you've already started, you've done a few films, you have done everything, you know, self-made, and now you're at the point where, okay, cool, I need this to catapult and jump into the next stage. Absolutely vital, right? Maybe you're a beginning writer and you have this script and you're trying to figure out representation because, you know, you do need to figure out how to talk and navigate and figure out those deals. I think for people that are looking, it really does depend on what you are looking for. It really does depend on what you are doing and where you're trying to break in. I think knowing companies that, whether they are, lit based, so like for scripts and for IPs and property, whether, you know, you're not, like, knowing that and knowing that they are building in the area that you are currently creating in, super important, right? So like doing that research and seeing the clients that they have worked with and what they feel like their sweet spot is, that's what I think somebody's going to pretty much want to do up top. And then I do think, you know, some people are always looking for new clients, right? It's like because they want to break, I think, the next talent. They want to have, the next voice. And I think we realize it's I do think this industry is tricky because, like, yes, there is a bit of we want the tried and true, but at the same time, I do feel like everybody wants the next whoever, or to be able to say, like, I have, or I put somebody on. There is definitely, I think, that because our business needs it. And honestly, like, that's what people really get excited about too. So I think just being strategic with how you are doing that. A lot of people, when they're first starting off, they're like, okay, I'm just going to pay for a lawyer to make sure that the contracts look good and make sure that, like the money is right. Like, that's kind of like the first step. But I do think, if you need a manager over an agent, right? If you need more curated advice and working on, if you've never done a pitch before, like, your managers typically are the people that are helping to massage and getting your pitches together and your materials together, so it's like everyone kind of plays a different type of role. So it depends on where you are, who you may need on your team. You might not need a manager, agent, and a lawyer and a PR person. You might not need all of that, so I think really just kind of like determining where you want to start based on what your actual need is. But I do think, representation is something that you are going to want to do, because they're also your mouthpieces. They're your biggest champions. They're calling around. They're making sure you're getting the meetings that you're supposed to be getting. They are, again, reading your work when they're talking to studios or networks. Like, they are the people that's like, okay, heads up, they're looking for a genre. Our favorite topic. You want a genre person, but like, those are your representatives, right? And they are the cheerleaders, and they are making sure that they're guiding you to where you want your career to be. And they're also suggesting where they feel like, your strengths should lie. And so you really want somebody that knows you, not looking to check the box, because we're not checking boxes. We're not doing that, but you want somebody that really knows where you're trying to be professionally, and they're helping to guide you and get you to that place. And it's like they are investing in you, and you are like, it's a relationship. You're getting in a marriage. You are in a marriage. And so you want to make sure that it's right. If you're not able to tell, I'm a bit proponent of having marriage, because I feel like I do think it's necessary, but at the same time, like, this is a very big, and it's small, and it's a big industry, but you want to be able to connect to the people that you are supposed to connect to, and efficiently talk about what you are supposed to talk about too, and I just think that they help navigate that space in a very specific way.
I totally agree. Idil, I see you smiling.
I was just going to say, then it's kismet, because I, like B, am also seeking a partnership and a marriage with the right manager. Let me be clear, the right manager, to kind of expand into this next phase of my career. And so it's been great to hear both of you speak on that, because I definitely have been inviting that in this year.
Well,
And
we'll
it's weird.
invite that energy, and yeah, I'll also sidebar with you, or I may have some recommendations.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird. It's like you want, because I'm not gonna say like you have to go with like the person that's been doing it for 20 years. I'm not gonna say that, right? But I do think it's, if they're not able to kind of like present a plan, and I think, and that's the thing, it's like it could be somebody that's new, right? Like I'm that, as long as they are able to talk to you about like what a plan looks like and present that, and I see this for you, like, you cannot buy passion. You can't, right? And it's like you want to be chosen, especially in this business. And it's like that to me, I'm like, it means a lot. Yeah, and I can't really understate that a lot. I think we all kind of know when it feels good and it feels right, and you want that when you're building your team out.
Yeah, no, thank you for saying that, Jamila. It's like we needed to hear that today. I think I can speak for both of us, but I don't want to speak for you.
Oh, no,
But it's
no.
like, we just pick up and we keep going. That's what we do. That's what we do. And it's like, okay, cool. It didn't come around. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to stop working, which is how we end up, 10, 15 years. And we've done X, Y, and Z. And it's just like, it's literally like, I'm just going to do this myself. Right. And that is, I think, testimony to who we are as women and just who our integrity that we're bringing into this. And it's like, I want this bad, I'm just going to figure it out. But at the same time, I think if we can, put those right pieces in place, I just think you're just going to soar even that much more further. So you're going to make it. I just think it's like how you're going to get to that end point. So that's my TED talk. I'm done. That was it.
Here for it. We're here for it.
Great.
That's a great segue into my next question, which is, as Black women, what have you noticed about your trajectory? What are some things the industry could do to support you? Idil, jump in because you're like right there.
I've been really, I've been thinking about this a lot. I'm like, what can I say
that is kosher?
I would like to say that as a Black woman in this industry, I can't help but notice that there is that the glass ceiling is sometimes not even glass. Like sometimes it's like can feel even harder. So I think what I'm really trying to say is that I can see a difference in trajectory of male counterparts in the industry that are lateral to where we started. And I don't want this to sound like shade or whining. That's not my intention. My intention is that it's just pretty clear that to be a man in this industry the career trajectory is very different than that of the women that I know and the trans women that I know laterally where they are in their careers. And so I really hope, to our points earlier, like, look, I love this. I will keep doing this. I will keep striving. This is what I want to do. And I think, entering into motherhood has had me pause and reflect on not only how I'm showing up in the world, but the career that I want to continue to have and create, and how I want to model that for my Black daughter, right? So I think that, one goal is to continue to hope and create and try to create a more equitable work environment for all of us and access to work. And I think that goes back to our conversation about representation and what types of work we're going out for, who's supporting us in these careers, what we're doing on our own versus with a team. And so I think, it's about just forging forward, hoping with the right team in place, setting an example, and trying not to be going down a darker path of the realities of the industry, because the realities of the industry are there. And if I sit down and really meditate on it and how unfair it can feel, then I won't wake up the next day and show up for work, right? And so what do I need to do to create the path forward, knowing that the game can sometimes feel rigged? And I would like to see, again, a more equitable industry. And I would like to see access for all my sisters so they can be able to make the work that they want to make and not have to be checking boxes or, being told they don't have the right experience or whatnot when we see a lot of shortcuts for some of our male counterparts. That's the best way and the most diplomatic way I can and long-winded way I can say it.
That is great. Go ahead, B.
No, I'm just saying mic drop. That was, I was feeling all the feels with what you were saying. I also just feel like people know what they need to do. I think we've been having this conversation for decades now. It's been repurposed as different things. We had the golden age of the 90s, and then it stopped, and then I think people know. So it's just kind of we know we need more Black shows. We need more Black movies. We need more Black folks behind and in front of the camera, but we also need that trust. from production companies. And I feel like trust is, I feel like, the missing link in the fabric. I mean, even something I just directed that I was really proud of, I think that most of those folks don't work with each other, not just because of how they physically present, but because of like not really knowing who is this person really. And so I feel like there needs to be some type of bridge, especially as it pertains to different people in terms of their sexual orientation, whether it's their race. There has to be an actual bridge in which we have a conversation about like pay inequity, budgets, like no tea, no shade, but it's been really interesting. Like my producer was put through the ringer through this program and being piecemealed money as if we haven't done a short film before, so it's just like this guise of, you trust us and we're going to make a great piece of work, but yet you're only giving us a few $1,000s, and then the card maxes out because there's not enough money for all departments to do what they need to do. So it's just this, I feel like this lack of trust, and I don't really know what are the first steps, but I feel like I'm very interested in world building, like just as a person. And so I feel like we have to almost like create a new system, because I don't think that the system that has been put in place is fully working. And I think Black women, Black folks, and anyone who is other really need to start looking at ways of like being outside of the system, whether it means even going to international places and maybe then coming back to the US, applying to grants and fellowships in different countries, working with producers from different countries who you might be more easily able to like make your feature in Brazil or Tanzania, Angola, whatever, as opposed to making it in the US and then getting traction internationally and then hoping that maybe that noise internationally will then come back. I don't know. I have all sorts of ideas, but I don't know. I think I'm in a way like thinking outside of the system, because I just feel like the folks that need to get it still aren't getting it. And I think we saw that from the strikes. So do we keep on like wanting to be at their table, or do we just say, all right, let's make our own table? So
yeah, I think I'm sorry, just to chime in. I know I was gonna say, I agree, you have to find ways to make the work outside of the system, because sometimes a feedback loop can be, discouraging. And what we have to show and present and do is very, like I said, different, I've done a short film, and then it's like, well, where's the feature, for example, right? But then you'll see other people, making it with a short and not having had the feature. And so it's like, can we just agree on a set list of requirements needed to get from point A to point B, instead of just kind of deciding as we go. And I think as Black women, at the new table, it's like, no, there's this assumption that we can all do it. We have the experience. I think there's a certain point where, proved it, got the t-shirt, had the receipts, like ready for it, and so ready to be in that space. And I just wanted to shout out, for example, the Queen Collective through Queen Latifah, who identified us and said, we, like programs like that, where they're like, we know you can do it. Here's the cash, go do it, and I think that there are a number of people like Queen, Lena Waithe and Ava DuVernay and others they're kind of like, they've been through it themselves, and they're creating pathways for the rest of us. And I appreciate them for that. I just wanted to mention that from my earlier tirade, where I was just talking about the difference in career trajectories between some people that I just assessed and analyzed in this phase post-motherhood.
It wasn't a tirade, so we're not even gonna put that energy on what you said. Because I think we've all seen it, and I'm happy that you shouted out, I think, those collectives, because they are there. They are, I do think that there are a lot of programs that are designed in theory, right, to do exactly what it is that we're talking about and what we're looking out for. I find it's what happens after that point, right? And how do you continue to work, and how do you continue to circulate and keep the momentum going and keep the buzz going? And so I do think that there are people that have been in this and in the circle of it a lot longer, right? Like, yes, there's multiple ways we can be in the business, right? But be in completely different circles, you know? And so I think I refuse, like, I'm not giving up on my studio systems. I'm not giving up, you know, I think that that is the goal. I think the goal is to make projects that we love and for audiences to connect with what we've made, right? And I think that has to happen by any means necessary. And so I love the collectives. I love, you know, those initiatives. Maybe it's connecting with people. I know we were talking about mentorship before, like maybe it's connecting directly with, you know, the trailblazers that have paved the way and carved the way, and really just kind of like closing up that gap and closing that circle. And maybe it's what we're creating right here on this Zoom call and us working together and building something. And I really think I don't think the answer is what could be in place to help us, because to me that it's like it looks like a multi-tiered, you know, like I think too many things would have to change, to be honest with you. But I think what does have to happen is I think we need to be making the work and having the resources to create and actually output movies, output pilots, output, you know, whether it's a digital series or a podcast, so that people, like, it is tangible and it is no longer an idea. And I think a lot of the times, even though we're in production, right, I think a lot of the times there is still a very big hurdle of actually getting the feature done, getting the pilot made, getting it from the idea stage into something that, you know, hey, check this out, I just put this together and I did this and I can now put it into a film festival. And that does boil down to, I think, money a lot of the times. But I think the more that we are all connecting and we can pull together on getting it done, whether it's like we all take turns, okay, 1 month your project's up, the next month my project's up, the next month is your project, and now we're walking away and we got 3 different projects. That to me feels like the pipeline. That's where I feel like stuff gets held up at. It's the actual production and making of whatever it is. And I think support into having that process happen, that's what I'd love to see more of. So whether it is a collective and it's like, hey, here, you know, go make a short documentary, or go make a, you know, a short narrative or a full narrative. I think having the support in that way, I feel like that's a bit more beneficial, because then we're actually walking away and we have something that I can actually show you from start to finish. This is what this looks like. There's always exceptions. There's, you know, all of that, but I really, it's a, what have you done? And eventually you have to show somebody what you've done. And personally, I feel like that's the hiccup that I find. And that's what I think, if we kind of remove that and we build everyone's not resume, their portfolio, and everyone kind of has like this robust collection, at that point, it does kind of become a bit more undeniable. And I think it kind of hops back to what you were saying. Maybe you have to do it outside of the country. Maybe, you know, maybe it's a different type of grant. Maybe it's a different, you know, maybe it's a branded play. I don't know. I think we can, you know, talk through what all of those different ways look like, but it still kind of comes back to the short or the work or the feature or what it actually is. And I think that's what I would love to see happen. I would love to see creatives create more. Yeah.
Mic drop.
Perfect world.
You know, kind of staying in this similar space, B and Idil, like myself, you've done your fair share of diversity programs, right? I'm truly grateful for them. I wouldn't be where I am without some of these programs. But then some of them are problematic in a way, in the way they're set up. What do you think are like some things that programs could do to like foster like positive growth post the program or during the program, so that, the intention that they have is truly meaningful beyond the program? B.
So many thoughts. I'll try to be quick. One is similar to what Jamila is talking about in terms of just like the pipeline. I find a lot of programs and a lot of folks, I want to believe that they have the best intentions, right? Like they're giving folks who may not have just these funds at their disposal an opportunity to make a film. So that's always beautiful. But I think having support from filmmakers who not just look like the filmmakers who they're being selected, would be important to just have in the room, but navigating, you know what I mean? Like true navigation of what does it mean to have a manager? What does it mean to have your pitch? It's almost like I wish programs were designed in such a way that it was like a mini school, so that basically by the time you get out, you're so ready. Like, even if you didn't go to film school, you have maybe not just this short, but you have, a Rolodex of more things to show. You have the next script that you're working on, or treatment, or just something. So it doesn't feel like this beautiful one-off experience, but then there's nothing after it. Like, I'm grateful for like Queen Collective, because it is very instrumental, it has been very instrumental in the things that I've gotten, even the Vital Voices project that both Idil and myself are working on. But I love that, like, even for my year, we had, the filmmaker from a beautiful film, the DP, looking and giving us notes about, this is what your DP should be doing. This is, what an editor should be doing. When Sam Pollard came in, and producers gave us notes. So it was almost like this beautiful orientation that happened within a week span. But, I don't find that many programs are willing to really get in to all the weeds. And a program that I'm not going to mention, but I'm doing right now, it's also felt really icky, in the sense of like, I've done short films. I literally have a feature film out, and I'm manager and agentless. So to your point, Jamila, I think it's hard. I want to have faith in the system, but the system hasn't always been right to me. I sometimes feel like I'm like the pariah of the group, like the outcast, who like, I've done the things. I don't know what else y'all want. You know what I mean? Like, I literally have a feature out. I've done over 7 short films. I have scripts. I don't know, So, and these are the things where maybe I go right to IMDb and I look on and I see who are junior managers who maybe need a new client to represent. But it's always unfortunate to me that Black folks still have to do the extra work. Like, why do we still have to do the extra work when these programs are in place? And so I just feel like there's a lot of structural things that I would love to like change about programs, because I just find that there's still a mistrust and distrust of Black creatives. And I think just giving us money and, having a pat on the back is not enough. There's a whole system that needs to happen. There's a whole pipeline that, I think people are like riding past, and that just bothers me a lot. So I'm off my soapbox.
Well, thank you for sharing that insight. I know it wasn't really easy, so thank you.
And I think what B said highlights like what we talked about earlier, just in terms of the importance of staying grounded, and, because it can chip away at your spirit, when you're constantly having to prove yourself day in, day out, when you have the resume, the experience, the projects that show and exemplify your capabilities, both creatively and professionally, So I do appreciate you sharing that.
And you don't want to be jaded, right? It's like we love this. We are here because we do love this. And it's like, and I hear you, and I hear you loud and clear. And that's what I was kind of talking about before. It's like multiple things have to change, right? It is a multi-layered issue. And I think we can, again, I'd love to continue talking after this. And I'm not saying I have all the answers. I don't, but I do think the circles and knowing, what the end goal is it indie? Is it commercial? Is it like knowing that? And I think honing in and zeroing in and beating and pushing and kicking the door in that area, perhaps it's strategy and approach. I don't know, right? I just know that we are here and we're not about to give up, and we got to figure it out, right? And it is, I don't want to wrap it up in what everybody else is doing, right? Because I think that's distracting. That's not my path. That's not who I am, nor who I want to be. And it's like who I am, and this path is the path that I have to walk and figure this part out. And I love what you had mentioned. It's a bit of, I think, finding the circle and finding, the team and finding those people and building it together, to the point where it is a bit undeniable. And then I just keep thinking about how powerful it's going to be when you're like, this isn't my first, this is my, and thinking about all the stuff that you've done. But it is a bit of an orchestration, I think, to get to that point. And that's something that I don't like. It's not a I pick you. It is strategic. It is orchestrated, and it's like I think it's building that team out and really putting the power behind and pushing it forward. And then it's similar when you get there. It's okay, well, who's the next wave that's coming in? Who am I working with? What does my DP look like? Who is my team? And just kind of like really expanding it out that way. And the other interesting thing is too, like talking about the studio system is